Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Vitality Festival. We've had a fantastic day, and I just wanted to welcome everyone from all around the world, whether you're tuning in right now or you might be listening to this at a later date. But I'd like to welcome you all. My name is Tanya Levy, and I am the co-founder of the Vitality Festival with the amazing Vikki Friedman, who is here with us today. Before I introduce our incredible speaker, I just want to let everyone know that we are recording this session. So by staying on, you just acknowledge that you're okay with that, so all our people can watch this afterwards. And also, we've kept everybody on mute at this stage because we want Simon to be on the main screen. If you've got any questions for Simon, please feel free to put them in the chat. Hopefully we'll get a chance at the end for a little bit of questions and answers. And without further ado, I would like to welcome Simon Madden. He is an incredible man, which really needs, in our country, no introduction. He is an absolute football legend, which I'll start with. He has 19 years of Aussie rules experience. He was in the Essendon Football Club, and he was the best and fairest. He got the best and fairest awards. He had the Norm Smith medal. He was the best on grounds, and he was involved in 2 AFL finals. And also he was included in the AFL Hall of Fame. That's not what he's here for, so everyone can relax. We're not playing football today, Aussie rules. It's a very tough game. You don't need to worry about that. Since then, Simon has used these skills and all his growth and knowledge, and he has now started up a business of his own, which is coaching. He's really involved in personal and business coaching, and he's a high performance consultant. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome Simon Madden. So over to you. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you very much, Tanya. Lovely to be here. It's been a great week. I've dropped in on a couple of occasions to see different things. It's been fantastic. Yes, if there's anybody going to watch this overseas, I think the one that I've noticed actually impresses people in the sports of overseas. If you mention the Hall of Fame, people go, oh, I know what a Hall of Fame is. I don't know what the sport is, but I know what a Hall of Fame is. So thank you for that. But that was a long time ago, and I've actually been involved in since then. I'm originally a teacher by profession, so I actually really understand the education process and really enjoy. I think how I've developed into the role I have now is that I'm a parent, a teacher, a sports person, coach. I actually like to see people improve, and so that's been one of the bases of my actual job, my employment, running my own business. I've been involved in business after teaching, probably close on, I sort of lose count, about 25 years now. So I've worked in small, medium, large, national, international, and my own business for the last 11 years. And what you do in that is sort of talk about high performance, and that's sort of dealing with, well, basically how to get good and stay good. And I deal with the individual, the team, the leadership, and the culture. And one of the things that's come out of that, especially, of course, in this strange 2020 year, which we put the world, in some ways we put the world on hold, in other ways we've exacerbated a whole lot of issues. Of course, mental health and mental well-being have really come to the fore. And I noticed through my involvement with education, my involvement with sport, my involvement with business, is that it's something that influences right across the board. And when I do some coaching with people, I call it business personal coaching, because it's very hard not to talk about their business and not talk about their family. You have to do both. Have to talk about their family, their life, because they're interactive. You don't switch off from your business. You like to, but you don't switch off from your employment, your business, what keeps you busy during your work time. At any stage, it's all interlinked. So I really do start, and I found out talking to people that when you talk about the business, they start to talk about their personal life. Of course, a whole lot of issues arise. And the background to what I'm talking about today is, I was actually asked to speak a couple of years ago. I think it was a couple of years ago. I was asked to speak at a function, which was a fundraiser for a group called I'm Just a Man. It's a charity that deals in assisting with preventing, especially male, suicide. And it was really interesting because it's a great charity. I do a lot of great things, but they asked me to speak after dinner for 12 minutes on preventing male suicide. Now, since then, it's grown into any type of prevention of harm to yourself. But I thought, how in the world can I actually talk to people about this very serious notion in 12 minutes? I mean, I talk in half-hour lots. if you don't cut me off for 30 minutes, I keep going for another 30. So be very careful about that one, Tanya. All right, today. But I really thought about what are men like? Well, men like things simple. They like them straightforward, and they like in small numbers. So what I came out with, as I said, the five things to help you with mental health resilience. And I'd like to share those today. Now, I'm not a mental health expert. I'm not a psychologist, have studied those things, have looked at those things, but it's more from life experience. And I've done a lot of research on it. And you'll see when I will put up some PowerPoints. I know you can be PowerPointed to death. I know people understand that, but with an ugly head like this, I don't expect people to stare at it all for 45 minutes. So I will put some information up. I think the screens get shared. I'm not sure, but I'll let Tanya be involved. If you don't see my face, that's fine. But I'll put it up. And I might even, if all goes well, I've got this prepared. So if all goes well, there you go. There we go. So I want to talk about the 5 steps to building mental health resilience. So if you're happy with that and people are involved and on, we'll get going. And so very simply, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And he says, as his screen doesn't move, of course, that's all right. There we go. Now, before we start, I always like to ask this question to everybody. Now, people don't have to, won't be able to yell it, but you have this in your hand. Which way is the bus going? Now, I've asked this of different groups at different times, and it's a really good question because it gives really interesting answers. Now, I know that's a very poor bus, and I've actually specifically chosen a very poor drawing of a bus, so nobody's intimidated by my drawing skills. Or maybe they are, maybe that is a good bus, I'm not sure. But it's really interesting when you ask this because people say, well, I'm not sure, which is the right answer. Some say it's not moving yet, so I say, very good. If it was going to move, which way would it go? Would it go left or right on your screen? And so normally I ask people to put their hands up and go, who thinks it's going to go left? You get some hands up. Who thinks it's going to go right? You get some hands up. Who thinks who really doesn't care about it? Some people are hands up there too. It doesn't really matter. The idea is that it's really interesting. They've asked this. This question developed a few years ago. It's not mine. It's you can find this online, of course. It's come about 5 or 6 years ago, and they asked preschool kids. Now, there's different versions of it. Some say under 10 years old. Others say preschoolers. But they asked this of children: which way is the bus going? Now, if they're in Australia, as you look at the screen, they'll say it goes to their right. If they're in America, they'll say it goes to the left. Now, the really interesting thing is that 80% of those kids are right. Now, if you give it to adults, they'll go, oh, yeah, okay, it's, who cares? I don't know. But 80% of kids are right. And it's really interesting because it's very simple how we make things. And that's why the idea of the 5 steps, let's not complicate things. Now, very simple for a child is they look at that bus. Now, for any child, how do you get on a bus? Of course, you get on a bus through the door. Can you see the door? No, there's no door. What does that mean? Door's on the other side. So if it's in Australia, the door would be on the right-hand side because it'd be close to the curb behind that side. In America, it'd be on that side, and on the right, there'd be the right-hand side of the road, would be on the left of screen. And the kids are right, and that's how they work it. Very simply, I get on through a door, there's no door, so the door must be on that side, it's going in that direction. And I say that because in any of these instances, in something like this, in a situation like this, I really like to put forward to people, education happens by getting information from outside sources and connecting it with information and knowledge you already have to come up with new ideas and new ways of thinking. And I think that's really important for people, that I don't necessarily think I will give you any new information. I may give you some new information. But what it is, it's really important that you have information already. And what we need to do is put those things together to come up with an outcome or an understanding or new knowledge that fits you. I did speak once at a group. It was actually a workshop for a group, and at the end, a lady came up to me, and well, there's two versions of this story. One lady came up to me and said, "I hate you," with a smile on her face, and I said, "Why?" And she said, "I've got to think about that now. I can't not think about it. I have to do something." I said, "Great. That's the whole idea is me to get you to have a different viewpoint." And another time a lady came up to me after and said, and was asking for a solution. And I said a few things, and this went on for about 3 or 4 minutes, and then we, said goodbye. And the fellow who was organising it said to me, he said, you're really good at not giving her an answer. And I said, yes, because my answer to that situation was not going to be relevant. What she didn't need to do was take some of the information and find her answer for her. So why I say these 5 points are very important. they have to be relevant to you, and hopefully you'll get something from them. So firstly, and it came about, I talked about how it was going to be very simple. So I thought, what's a very simple thing I can start with? So I started, again, talking with children. They're very good. They're very clear. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, once I called official line. I really thought that was very, simple and easy for us to understand. And we can all count to 5 because we've got this hand that can point to that. So we're all very good at counting to 5. We can do that. So I thought, well, let's have a think about that. I said, well, maybe let's talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 once I kept a personal life. And that maybe could be a friend. Maybe that could be yourself. But it's really interesting about, let's have a little bit of a plan because there's a lot of resources out there. And you'll see, I'll talk a little bit about this. There's a lot of resources out there to help you, but it starts with you. And you are your best resource. And a lot of people forget this, that you are your best resource. I talk about it, and I'll talk a little bit about health, where I know with a lot of men, I will spend more time maintaining the car that takes them, the vehicle that takes them around the streets, than their body, which is the vehicle that takes them around the house. So it's really important that you look after this initial best resource you have you. And of course, you're going to need lots of others. So, and I've got some research here I want to talk to, and this is where the research comes from. So it's not just me. I've tried to, and they interact, and it's trying to get it up to date, especially in 2020 is a bit hard. But these are the research comes from the Black Dog Institute, Lifeline, Australian Bureau of Statistics, Australian Institute of Health and Welfare, Suicide Prevention Australia, Sane Australia, and the Worldometer, which is very good at calculating populations in real time. So that's where we get there. And I want to put this information forward to you so there's a starting point, because what I found about people talking about mental health is we've seen it as a negative. And what it really is the fact that if we talk about physical health, you break your finger, you go and get it fixed. If you've got an illness, you go and see a doctor about it. And I think the fact that, and you're seeing those stats, that mental health is not a problem, it's a fact of life. And so this is something we have to address as a normality in our life to a certain extent, because it is very prevalent. So just have a look. These are the latest statistics I can come up with. So suicides in Australia in 2019 with 3,318. And that's 20%, 75% men and 25% women. And we can talk about how that men are, although women will try it, men are much better at it. Black humour, a funny comment in a very serious situation. I presented this with a group last year, and when I said 75% men and 25% women, one of the ladies in the audience just said, "Oh, yeah, we haven't got time." And isn't that interesting? Because the working mother, the professional mother, or the women in the workforce, they are busy all the time. They have so many things to do. And I thought it was a nice bit of black humour in a very serious subject. But the really important thing about that number is that's the base number we talk about. Have a look what's behind it. Suicide attempts in Australia in 2019 were 65,000 plus. A lot of people, those are attempts from one person in more than once, but that's a whole lot of it. And then you look at an underlying reason for that is you see that people with complex mental illness, and the latest one is 2018, there's 690,000 plus people in Australia with complex mental illness. And complex mental illness is more than just one thing, more than just I've got depression, or more than I've just got bipolar. It's a combination of things. So we have a lot of people with a lot of mental health illness. And because of that, the extended evidence of complex mental illness in 2018, again, is over 3.5 million plus. So for every person who's got a complex mental health issue, they're affecting other people, their family, their friends, their workplace. So these are the things they're actually expanding and getting into it. And people, now really interesting, in 2018, 2019, people receiving prescriptions for complex mental illness was about 4.3 million. So this is not just a small thing. The 3,318 suicides is a tip of a bigger iceberg. Now, if you look at that, we have an Australian population in 2020, and this is where the Worldometer comes in. They've calculated per minute is 25.5 million people, of which I'm trying to talk about an adult population, and probably this does definitely affect younger people too, but I'm looking at the Australian population, which is 15 years plus and over in 2020, about over 20,000, 20,731,500. So they're the people who are going to have, I'm certain that we're going to have children with mental health issues, but as we get older, the world becomes more complex. And so that amount of people do have an issue with mental health. And you look at people who will experience a mental illness in their lifetime. So not a complex mental illness, but a mental illness. The people who will experience mental illness in their lifetime is over 11 million people. And the really interesting one is for all the pragmatists, and if they talk about the medical side of it, they talk about the financial side of it. Money spent on mental health in 2017-18 financial year was $9.9 billion. And that's a big wow. I saw Tanya go, wow, it is. And so you think about this is prevalent throughout our society. It's not an issue, it's a fact that this is there. And we have to start to look at that as being part of our life. And so what I talk to people about is taking responsibility for yourself. And you'll see where I'm going with these 5 steps to mental health resilience. And so, of course, where do we start? We start at the beginning. We start with 1. Isn't that an amazing way to start? Just with 1, nice and simple and easy. And the one in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is there's only one voice you listen to. Right? It's only one voice you listen to, and that's the one in your head. Now there are so many other voices. There's so many other voices that will influence that voice, and we all know about this. How other people can really influence, but the one in the end you listen to is yours. And I say half seriously, but half funny, but half seriously. If there is more than one voice in your head, you actually need to go and talk to somebody seriously. But that's a very rare occasion. But there is this one voice. And I want to talk about that because that is a very, very powerful voice. I want to talk about, in layman's terms, as best I can. Again, I'm not a doctor, but this is some research I've done, about how the brain works and how we think and how we use our thinking. So very simply how the brain works is we've got, of course, the conscious brain. We have the subconscious or the unconscious, as some people say, and they are linked very similarly together with a little thing down here called the RAS, or the reticular activating system. That's as complex as I'm going to get, all right? The reticular activating system, and I've made it simple, RAS. And the best way to explain how the conscious and subconscious mind work is the RAS connects the conscious mind to the subconscious mind and vice versa. Now I've presented before and asked people, and I found this out, how much of your thinking do you think happens in your conscious brain out of 100%? And there's no right or wrong answer. Well, there is a right answer at the end, but in that situation, a lot of people really don't know. And I've asked people, just have a guess, and people say 50%, some will say 10%, some will say 20%. In actual fact, depending on which model you look at, it's about 1 or 2% of your thinking happens in your conscious brain. 98 or 90%, 99 or 98% is in your subconscious brain. And the RAS connects these two. And what it is, the best way to explain it to people is, if you're my age, the conscious and subconscious connection is like saying you've got a computer on your desktop and you've got a server in the server room. So you've got a little bit of knowledge on your desktop computer and a lot of knowledge in the server in the computer room. If you're a young person, basically you've got a phone and the cloud. There's a little bit of information on your phone and there's a whole lot of information in the cloud, which is in a server room, but not in your country or building somewhere else. And what is interesting is, if you think about how Google works, if you want to go and search something on your phone, you say, you know, how far it is from Melbourne to Sydney, or what was the last record of Rihanna had a top 10, whatever you're searching, Google just goes and finds it and brings back the information. Now, that's what the RAS does with the conscious and subconscious mind. But the really interesting thing is that, like Google, there are no morals or no judgment on that search engine. Unfortunately, people go and search for porn, it'll find porn for them. If it searches for unlicensed music, it'll find unlicensed music. That's the way Google works. Well, same with your brain. If you ask it a question or make a statement, it will find things to match that. So when you get up and look in the mirror in the morning, especially say with an athlete, if an athlete gets up, looks in the morning, looks in the mirror and goes, gee, I'm going to have a bad game today, they're right. Because what the conscious mind will go and find anything in the subconscious mind to match that. I'm going to have that bad game. Remember you played badly last week. Remember you dropped the ball last week. Remember that missed that goal. Now you think about that. If you get up in the morning and you look in the mirror and you say, gee, I'm going to have a bad day, you are right. Because that's what your brain will do. It'll go and search everything in your subconscious to match that. Or if you get up in the morning, same with an athlete, so you get up in the morning and say, look, I'm going to have a really red hot go today. I reckon I'm going to do all right. It will go and find stuff to match that. So what we've got to understand is that one voice we listen to is the most powerful voice in our lives. So we have to understand, what are we saying to ourselves? What are we listening to? And it's very easy, a lot of research will show that it's very easy to be negative than it is to be positive. And I've always said, I always use sport as an analogy. I was lucky enough to play out in a big arena, Melbourne cricket ground, in front of 100,000 people. And people, it's very easy for people, they love to cheer, but very easy to point and go, that's wrong, that's terrible. Very easy to do that. It's much harder to be positive. So we are hot-wired to actually have a go at ourselves more regularly than to praise ourselves. So I say to everybody listening and everybody out there, it's really, really important that you understand what that one voice is saying to you. Are you taking the time to calm down, collect your thoughts, deep breathe, think about what's happening in your head? Or are you just, like lots of people, really easy and quickly shooting yourself down? Because either way, you're going to be right for that day. And I've actually practiced over time, and talking about the 100,000 people, I know we make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. I've used, for example, with people, I've been successful in football, but also in the MCG, in front of 100,000 people. I've given the right handball to the right person in the right place at the right time from the right call in the wrong jumper. And I've handballed straight to the opposition and they've kicked the goal. And there you are in front of 100,000 people. And you want the MCG to open up and just swallow you, but you can't. And so you have to keep going. Of course, what do you say to yourself? I'm going to have a terrible game for the rest of the game. All right, I have to make up for that, or I can't do anything about that, but I can do something about the next situation. So it's really important. That one is the most important one in your life. There's one voice, and that's yours. And what is it saying to you? So hopefully that makes sense. And that leads, of course, to two. Oh, sorry, an example of, just to give you an idea about what the type of things you're saying to yourself. You can talk about a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And a growth mind, and that's, I mean, there's, this can ebb and flow a little bit, but basically if you've got a growth mindset, have a look at that. You see the world that you can grow within the world at any stage. I can learn anything I want to. When I'm frustrated, I persevere. I want to challenge myself. When I fail, I learn. Tell me I try hard. If you succeed, I'm inspired. My efforts and attitude determine everything. Whereas in a fixed mindset is just yes or no, black or white, more so. I'm either good at it or I'm not. When I'm frustrated, I give up. I don't like to be challenged. When I fail, I'm no good. Tell me I'm smart. If you succeed, I feel threatened. My abilities determine everything. So that's a way of looking at the type of things you can be saying to yourself. Do you have a growth mindset about how things can get better? Or do you have a fixed mindset about how things are negative and bad? And that's an example of how you can talk to yourself and the thoughts that come into your head. Which leads me to, sorry, I'm just a few other things. I'm getting keen to go to two, but just about happiness, in that things about happiness in your life, about what your voice is telling you. So, and I could spend a whole hour on each one of these too, but just things about the positive things you say in your head to yourself. Have you got good goals and values? Do you work towards that? Really important thing, random acts of kindness. Just actually being kind to people actually makes you feel better. And that can actually be actually saying, I've helped somebody, you're thinking positively. Just mindfulness, and I'm sure lots of people have spoken about that over the week. Just taking the time to be mindful. Whole explanation goes along with that. And working on your strengths and working on solutions, not just working on what's bad. Never say, oh, this is wrong. You always say, this is wrong, and what am I going to do about it? So working on what your strengths, and everybody has strengths, and understanding your strengths is really important. Gratitude, being thankful for what you've got. I always like to say to people that, would you like to be in the top 1% of earners in the world? And people sort of look at me and I go, well, according to the world rich list, I think the website is if you make after tax in Melbourne, Australia, if you make $50,000, you already are in the top 1% of earners in the world. But we don't see that. Are we grateful for that simple thing? Are we grateful if you have a roof over your head, if you have a wardrobe to put your clothes in, and if you have a refrigerator to put your food in, a bed to sleep in, you're in the top 75% of people in the world. We don't see that. We're always looking at the negative side. So we're very much easier to pick on the negative side. Are we grateful for what we have? Of course, forgiveness is huge. We don't take on stress. We don't hold on to badness. How we feel about people. Forgiveness is really important to help with your happiness. And of course, social networks, and I'll talk a little bit more about that further. But there's an idea of some of the things that affect the way we think. And are we aware of these things? And are we making sure that we're looking at these things in a positive way? And that's that one thing. And of course, reflect, review, and renew. Do we take that time to look at what we're doing? to take the time, and this is really important in sport. When I played sport, the first thing to do on Monday was have a look at the game of the weekend, work out what you did right, what you did wrong, what you could improve. Reflecting, reviewing and renewing is really important, and it's an ongoing process. So are you taking the time to look at the, reflect on things you're grateful for, reflect on your social networks, to review your goals and values, to renew your social networks. It's really, really important. Of course, we get to, I'm a very simple man. What follows one? Number 2. Very simple. And I have to do that. I have to do this 1, 2. That's right. That's how it goes. And it's like in very simple. And this is very simple. 2 people. There's a whole lot of research. So if you have a partner, a life partner, of some way, shape or form, you actually live longer and have a better life. It doesn't matter if you're male, female, LGBTQIA+, whatever your realization of yourself is, you get along better with a partner. Now, I know a lot of people are in situations where they've got to get away from a partner, but I talk about short-term, mid-term, long-term. Do you have a good partner that you can rely on? Because it's just simple. It shows that 2 people are better than 1 from a whole lot of research. And I come from a very, very sort of, I suppose, old world view of that, male, female, 4 kids. That's the family I have. But we know in the modern world there's a whole lot of other ways of what families are. People living in share houses, people in different relationships with different genders. That doesn't matter. All that matters is that there are 2 people that love and get along with each other and help each other, because that's actually help you get, somebody else helps you get through the hardnesses of life and the difficulties you face. So it's really important to understand that it's okay to have a partner, and that partner can be short-term, mid-term, long-term, hopefully longer term. And I know it's very much understand that you've got to get rid of somebody, but if you're in a relationship that's hurtful, how do you get rid of that person, and how do you find somebody who you can actually get along with? I haven't got time to spend on that, and I don't expect I'm an expert in that at all. But I do know the research shows that if you have a partner, you have a better life. And that's much shorter compared to the first one, all right? So there we are, just 2. And 3 is a really interesting thing, because I like to talk about 3 views, right? What we're very good at is seeing our view, and what sometimes we're good at is seeing the other person's view, but sometimes we need to have a 3rd view. And I'll talk about this, and I've got, lovely graphic there, 3 phones for 3 communications, but I talk about triangulation. Now you think about this. If you need to find anybody, or how a mobile phone gets, I'm trying to make this very modern rather than talking old worlds. So I talk about mobile phones, and young people understand you. Talk about how you find a mobile phone. It's triangulation. 3 towers will cross over and find where that phone is. And I said to people, what you need to do is triangulate a viewpoint on a situation. So if you're not feeling, if you're not feeling well about yourself, if you've that voice in your head is saying things that you really don't want to hear, but you can't not hear them, go and find somebody who can triangulate that with you. 2 people, a good friend, a good family member, who will give you a different view of that. And I've always thought about when we're viewing our situations, we're very good at, I can see my point of view. We can work hard on seeing other point of view. But what if you could sit in the room in the corner and watch what's happening play out? And that's not on CCTV camera, because that's very impersonal. But can you have a viewpoint of being subjective to the situation and sitting in the room? And I always say in the top corner, because you're looking down on it. You're not looking through the action, you're looking down on the action to see how can you actually look at the way things are happening. And that means how am I dealing with it? How's that person dealing with it? How are we interacting? So getting 3 viewpoints about any situation and 3 viewpoints about ourselves, I think is really important. Because a lot of times, and I said about what's that voice in your head, that voice in your head saying, I'm no good. Can you go and find somebody else who will disagree with you and say, no, I know you are really good. Or I don't know what to do in this situation. I think I should do this. Go and get a couple of different viewpoints to actually help you. Because 3 is a really good number for getting, if you want to vote on something, get 3 people. There's a yes or no, and then somebody else is going to make the decision for you. So there's got to be 2 yeses and a no, or 3 yeses or 3 no's. But in other words, just not be stuck in one viewpoint. Actually get that viewpoint about yourself, your well-being, your health. Go and get somebody else's viewpoint. I once was doing a client of mine, just a one-on-one coaching, business coaching, really nice bloke. And he started to talk to me about some difficulties. And I thought to myself, well, look, and when it gets to, and if you're a coach of people, a mentor of somebody, you've got to get to a point of understanding that you can't know everything and you can't necessarily save everybody and you're not an expert on everything. And I can remember saying, well, I need a third view on this. So I said to him, so look, I think you are starting to show signs of clinical depression, not just being depressed for that, you're starting to show signs of clinical depression. You might not know that, I'm not sure, you need to go and see a doctor. And he was very open to that, and he went and saw a doctor. Really good result from him. He wasn't clinically depressed, he was a little bit depressed, but he was really thankful, gratitude, he was really thankful that I brought that up in that conversation. So he could have just said, I'm depressed. I could have said, look, maybe I'm not sure, but he actually went and saw an expert to get a very good viewpoint. I think that's a really good example for me of where we can actually get a viewpoint from people who will give us a good insight into what we're doing. I think number 4, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're doing all right, is you've got to look at what I talk about, the 4 parts of your health. And I don't like to say holistic because some people get a wrong view of that. I just talk about your whole health. And there are, because rightly or wrongly, some people say holistic, it gets too metaphysical for me. But really, it's talking about your whole health. And the 4 parts that are very simple. It's about your physical, your mental, your emotional, and your spiritual health. And it's very hard to talk about one without talking about the others. They're all interconnected. Now, we are very good, or we're very bad, at looking after our physical health, but we're very good at measuring that. Historically, we can say, yes, especially in sport, my body fat percentage this week is this, I can lift this weight, I can run this distance, my body weight. We are very good at measuring our physical fitness, and we have a lot of ways of getting to the gym, or videos, CDs, etc., on how we can improve our physical. But the rest is all interrelated, and yet, especially men, but we don't work on those 4 things. We all know, oh yeah, I could work a bit more on my physical, I could do a better diet, I could maybe get out and walking, I can do that. But we really have to look at our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health all the time. And how are we working on getting that better? And I know from my sports career, and it was a long time ago, but it was very impactful on me, my sporting career, and I've said to people, it actually tested me physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And now spirituality can have religion in it or not have religion in it. That's up to you. There's no judgment there from me whatsoever. Some people want to have religion as part of their spirituality, others don't. That's fine. But there needs to be a spirituality in your life. And I said about, and for some people, their spirituality, religion is sport, is football. I take that on as religion. But I can remember that the sport actually tested me physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And people say, what do you mean? I said, well, of course, physically, all the training. Then you go to the stage of mentally, you can say to yourself, oh, this is very hard. Can I handle this? I got to really concentrate. I'm doubting myself, my confidence down. We go through all of those. You actually go through an emotional part of it too, is I hate the coach, or I don't want the fans booing me, or today, today, if you're a sports person, I'm getting trolled on social media. There's a real emotional strain there. How do we work on that? How do we work on getting our emotional status in a really good level? But the one that people question is, say, spiritually. And I said, well, what it did, it actually tested, because spirituality is what you believe. And high-level sport tested me on about what I believed about myself, what I believed about my teammates, what I believed about the game, and what in there for what I believed about the world. So there's ongoing testing physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And I would argue to people that that's what happens in life all the time. Every day, whatever we're involved in is testing us physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And we have to be aware, of that. That is, it could be having a drain on our emotions as well as our mental health. It could be actually draining on our spirituality, what we believe. And so we have to be aware. So what is that, number one, what is that voice saying to ourselves about these things? Part of that reviewing process, are we reviewing our situation on our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health? And look, there's just a couple of things I want to put in here about all of these. Now, this is very basic, but it's amazing how much we don't do this in the modern world. Water is really good for us, right? And I've said to people now, I don't want a lawsuit from a big soft drink company that does cola, but I know historically, truck drivers used to use that drink to clear the insects off their windscreens at the end of a long drive, right? And so there are drinks out there, and there's all about bubbly, fizzy drinks, sweet drinks, amount of sugar. What they do to your body. Now, and I talk about this, is that we don't drink enough. And think about this. This comes from the Journal of Biological Chemistry, 158. It's a medical document that up to 60% of the human body is water. The brain, the heart are composed of 73% water. The lungs are about 83% water. The skin contains 64% water. Muscles and kidneys are 79%. And even the bones are water at 31%. Now, that's not stationary and static, because when you're younger, there's more water in the body than when you're older. So to say, people, as we get older, we dry out a little bit. You get a little, the skin gets a little bit dry, but keeping water up is really, really important. And it's really some research to show that if you have a headache, you could drink some water. You might just be dehydrated. It's been research has shown you've got a bad back, just you're getting pain in your back. It could be a sign of dehydration. Go and drink some water first. We all need great medicine, and there's a lot of great medicine out there, but we don't automatically should just go and grab a pill because that's the answer. We definitely need some sometimes. But let's think about keeping the water, and it's very easy. It's the colour of your urine. And people say, well, how much should I drink? Well, the people, I'm 100 kilos and 195 centimetres. Some people I met a lady the other day. I reckon I said to her, situations. She's very small. So I think you weigh about as much as one of my legs. So talking about the amount of water you have is strange, but it's very similar colour of urine. If it's really dark yellow, you're dehydrated. If you go to the toilet 17 times a day, you're probably drinking too much. So one's a sign of. So you'll find out somewhere along the line how much water you should be drinking. So some say 2 litres a day. You should be regularly drinking water within your day. I think that's really important. Now, that's not too complex at all. Again, it's very simple. Let's keep drinking the water up to. Breathe is really, really interesting. Most of us shallow breathe. And if you're here, we're actually going to try this while we're here, right? So I can't see you, but what I suggest you do is, what we're going to do is put a hand on a chest and hand on abdomen. And we're going to do some deep breathing. And what I want you to do, because most people breathe with their shoulders, what we do, we shallow breathe in the top of our lungs. Now, when you really exercise really hard and you're heaving for breath, you actually use all your lung. But you can do that in the day. So what we're going to do is just there and there. I'm going to breathe in for 7, hold for 7, breathe out for 7. You're going to breathe in through your nose, hold for 7. Now, some say 6, 7, 8, some say 8, about breathe in for 7, hold for 7. But make sure your shoulders don't go up and your chest doesn't come out. Try and use your diaphragm, your stomach. So you breathe in and you're starting, if you're using your diaphragm, you're using the bottom half of your lungs. So you're bringing more air into your lungs. So let's see how we go. We go in, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hold for 7. Breathe out for 7 through your mouth. Do it again. Breathe in. Hold for 7. Breathe out. A few times doing that, that's enough for now. All of a sudden you feel more calm. It's amazing how people say, hang on, take a deep breath, just relax, take a deep breath. It actually is really good. It's really good for you. Now think about that, the cost to you about your health. Drinking water, there is a cost because it comes out of the tap, but it's not a big cost. Drinking water and breathing for starters is just a great way, but being in control of your breathing, deeper breathing, just think about those two things, how that could impact your day, how that can make it a little bit better. And of course, movement. Before we even talk about exercise, right? Before we even talk about exercise, talk about movement. There's a term, non-exercise activity thermogenesis is a fancy term, right? Non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Very, very flash modern term. And what it is, non-exercise, so it's not exercise. Activity, movement, that creates thermogenesis, means burn energy, means, in other words, it's a fancy term for doing things. And before we even talk about exercise, we've got to realise how much we're not doing in our life, right? Now think about this. If anybody out there, have you got a car with a wind down window? No longer in existence. I remember talking to young people about this because I used to have a car with a wind down window. And I remember talking one time to a young person. Now, you know those windows you wind down your cars, and all of them would go, no. So it was a long time ago. But there was research back then, if in just normal driving, about a normal driving, if you were winding down your window and winding up your window regularly in your day, over a year, that's the energy expended for about 5 kilos of weight. We're no longer doing that, right? And think about this for some people. They're actually get up in the morning, wander it now. They might not have even done this year in Melbourne in COVID, but say in a normal year, whatever that is, get up in the morning, wander around the house a little bit, wander into the garage, get in their car, drive 45 minutes into town, 30 minutes into town to a big city, go into underground car park, walk to the lift, go up in the lift, sit at the desk, sit there all day, wander around a little bit and reverse it and go home. And then we have the intake of food that we have some of the best in the world of as much as we like. So if a sudden we're not moving, let alone the exercise, we've got to start thinking about how do we move? Do I park, even if I take the train, do I park my car 2 blocks away from the train and walk? All right, or if I drive into town, do I park my car 2 blocks away from my work and walk? We've got so used to saying, I have to have this fancy exercise regime. Of course you do. But that concept of movement is really important. I've developed I'm not sitting up now, I've sort of sat here to be a bit more comfortable and have a much better looking background, make it look like I'm important. I have a stand-up desk. And so even the fact of just standing up at your desk during the day is using energy. The concept of movement, as you get older, you lose your balance. The concept of moving, think about this, one of the great exercises as you get older, and I've done this with a few of my friends, and I'm 62 years young. So to people, if you're under 60, or hit 60, welcome to the dark side. Welcome to the dark side if you hit 60. But think about this as simple exercise, because some people can't do this. Can you just get down on the ground by yourself and get up by yourself? Because one of the important things in the future, as you get older, if you fall over, you've got to be able to get up. Then we're getting to the stage where we don't practice that at all. So even before the fancy exercise regime, can we just get down on the ground and get ourselves up? In doing that, using a whole lot of muscles. Also, again, about the water and the breathing is also good for our inside well-being as long as they're outside. I'm sort of coming to, I got to show you this, just think of how we compartmentalize our health. Have a good look at that one. And this is what people do. Their fitness is only looked after at the gym. Now think about if they use the stairs instead of that elevator, they might only have to pay for half the gym sessions. If they did that every time. We compartmentalise our ideas about what our fitness is. And I'm keeping track of time. I know we're coming towards the end. And 5 is really, really important. I think the 5th one is really, really important. And we used to do this about kids. We told kids in school, find 5 adults that you can trust. Well, what we have to do in the modern world is find 5 friends that we can actually trust and have a real, honest, open, deep conversation with. And it might be a partner. But what if you're having a fight with your partner and need to discuss it? So it's your best friend. But then what if your best friend's away? All of a sudden it's got to be a 3rd one. Or maybe it's your counsellor, maybe it's your doctor, whoever it is in your life, 5 adults who can have a proper, deep conversation with, non-judgmentally, and not give you answers, but ask you questions. Because one of the things about one-on-one is delving, asking questions so people can get there. If you can have 5 friends, then you're in a much better position. Because remember, it's not about being alone, it's about loneliness. They're 2 different things. I know people who live alone and are not lonely at all. They go out and they meet people, but they like their own company. And I've seen people live in amongst lots of people and they're very lonely because they don't have that connection. They work in a big group, they live in a big group, but they're not actually, they're lonely because they're never alone, but they're still lonely. They have nobody, no 5 friends to actually have that deep, meaningful conversation. And so that's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm getting very close to the end. Just something to throw at you. If you want to change, if you want to look at it, a very simple process, been around for years. It's not mine. It should be positive first, but this is the only way I remember it. Stop, start, keep, change. Going to make a change in my life, or I want something. What am I going to stop? What am I going to start? What am I going to keep? What am I going to change? That can be with your diet even. Stop your diet, start your diet, keep this changing. Very, very simple. I just throw that out there to keep you something next time. And this is really important about how we can help ourselves and each other. Now have a look at that. one of my favourite subjects? No, that's a beer fridge. I think my father used to drink. My father used to drink Abbott's Lager and Melbourne Bitter. That was it. You took nothing from over the border and none of that stuff from South Australia with that terrible water. Now, this is my quote. Now, one of the great things about the modern world is we have lots of choices. One of the problems with the modern world is we have lots of choices. One of the things we can do for ourselves is narrow those choices. Because there's so many things out there to get in the way. So many people shining lots of objects at you. So many people saying, look at me, look at me. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. Look at me, look at me. We've got to be much better at just limiting our choices. And one of the choices I keep saying is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those 5 things first is a great way to have your choices, to start that way. Thank you for that. And I think I'm right on the 45 minutes, so hopefully. Thank you and all the best for the rest of 2020, whatever that shape or form that is. And hopefully we'll have a great time in 2021. Thank you for listening. Hopefully there's something there for you, and good luck.
Thank you, Simon. That was absolutely fantastic, and love the fact that you are so positive and so inspired about what you're talking about. It was really so easy to listen to, and you're always happy to have a giggle.
No, I've said before, very deep philosophy. Life is short and then you die. That's a fact, right? Even if you live to be 100, in the history of the world, that's not even a blink.
Yeah.
So I keep saying, so what are you going to do in that? Are you going to be negative, nasty, or, and we're going to, like, people worry about making mistakes. You make a mistake, you get over it. And these days you worry about a mistake in social media. Social media is so much looking more to the next thing that you'll only be 10 minutes and there'll be something else.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I have to agree with Victor, I must say. You were talking about once you get to 60, you're on the dark side. Well, I've just turned 50 last week, and I think the older I'm getting, I think we're all like fine wine. The older that we get, the better it is, And I think, as you develop, you become better friends with yourself and the world around you. And really, I think, everybody's enjoying life the older we get. So I think we've all got a lot to look forward to. And I think we can all do a good thumbs up for that.
Well, Tanya, I'm supposed to be doing the charmer, but you're looking closer to 40 than 50, so you're doing well.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. But thank you so much for sharing those 5 tips. That was really incredible. And I think it's, really useful for everybody in the frontliner at the moment. He's an old charmer, isn't he? What have we got here? What makes you optimistic, Simon? What makes you optimistic?
Hello, Victor. How are you? So good to see you. Good to see you. I think what makes me optimistic, I suppose it's winning and losing. I'm not sure. Like, I learned along the way that what you say to yourself is really important, and you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna lose. I think in sport, I've gone through that where and it's only in the end, it's some people say it's more than that. It's only a game, and you learn that losing and winning is okay. And you can lose and you can wake up the next day and you're still alive and the sun's still there and the world rotates, so that you say, well, and it is a choice. Do I be positive or do I be negative? That is a choice. And it's not, and remember, it's not what happens to you, it's how you deal with it. And I'm just a little one, like my father died when I was 13, right? 3 sons, mother was magnificent. She's passed away now, but she's magnificent, looking after 3 big ugly boys. And so how do you handle that? I mean, and then 3 years later, 16, I'm playing league football. Unusual, different, nobody does that. And you sort of go, well, that's the way, world can be strange and different for everybody. And so I always remember when my dad worked in the car industry and he was terrible with cars. Every car would break down that he had to do. And when we were going to the funeral, I'm 13, think about this, I'm 13, and we're in the morning car and the morning car breaks down. Now 13, I feel I'm 13, you don't say anything at a funeral. I feel like saying, this is typical of Dad. Isn't this a great send-off? It's exactly what should happen. So it's not what happens to you, it's how you deal with it. And I think that's really, really important. And I think it's, as I said, you work on being positive and you work on it. It's not just happening, you have to work on it. And I think it's I think it's something I've nurtured over time. That doesn't mean, like, people say, I'm full of energy. Oh, I have my moments. Somebody rings me, I go, oh, I don't want to talk to that person. Geez, we all do that. But hopefully it's on the plus side of positive rather than the negative side.
Great answer. And I loved what you were saying about reflect, review and renew, because it is really our attitude in terms of how we view everything that's in front of us, which is really important. I know that Victor agrees with that one too.
I would just say it really isn't an interesting time. Well, hopefully, especially in Melbourne, coming out of COVID, isn't that a great time to reflect, review and review? So what's my life? What's my life? My work? Because there are people moving to the country. They're not in the city. There are organisations going, we'll let you work from home 3 days a week. It's not that change is good or bad. Change happens, and then we have to review. What do we do about it? Is it good or bad? So I think it's a great time for us to be looking at things.
I think the
Simon, we've asked 3,000 people about their better normal, and we're getting 65% of people can articulate a better normal coming out of COVID.
Yeah.
Whether it's life balance or better time with the kids, but most people actually are strengthened through their COVID experience.
Isn't it interesting because, but isn't it interesting too, because again, somebody else's great line, the human body is frail, but the human spirit is very strong. And what's happened is that people have actually, and I know some people, been early on, they were hoarding toilet paper and fighting over stuff in stores, etc. But that's not the majority. The majority of people say, no, we can get on. It's really interesting. I've noticed with a lot of people when walking, when wearing masks, you can't smile at people. But a lot of people saying, hi, nod their head, hi, how are you going? Yeah, they're going, hi, how are you? And so they're actually taking, rather than just walking past, they're actually making the effort to still connect. So there are ways we can actually do it. So I think we've got our first grandchild. Mary, my wife, and I've got our first grandchild who is in Auckland, and we can't see him, but we see him regularly, and they'll be home, hopefully for Christmas, which is great. So how do we handle that? We've just become two great cartoon characters on the computer. Well, this going, hi, how are you? So when he gets here, we go, they're real people. So it's not what happens to you, it's how you react to what you do with it. I think a lot of people have. It's really good, Victor, that people have actually started to think about how there's a gratitude for what they've been able to get through and what they've got.
Very important. And I think, look, the only thing that we can really ever be certain about is that change. Change is always going to be there in our lives. And we have to learn to adapt and respond to change rather than thinking we can control and be fixed. I mean, we look at nature, and nature is our greatest teacher, and nature is always changing and always evolving. So I think that's one thing that we've all had to get used to in COVID is change is everywhere. And I think we all need to really embrace it rather than, pushing it away and wanting things to stay the same, because it's not natural.
Three things in life are certain: death, taxes, and change. We're all going to die, unfortunately. I haven't found the elixir of life. We're all going to be taxed. Okay, so if you buy petrol, you get taxed on tax. That's another story. But change, just watch this. Just wait. Change, wait. We all just changed. We all got older. We can fight it. We can't stop it.
No, it's a natural part of life.
Part of life, exactly right. That's great, Tanya. Great stuff. Well, good. Look, thank you for the opportunity, Tanya. And it's to me it looks like it's been a great success. A lot of people have been really interested. There's been a lot of talk about it. So well done getting on this. I suppose you call it a conference, but it's more than that.
It's a festival because we're celebrating life.
Well done on organising, Tanya, and thank you very much for including me.
My pleasure, and a huge thank you to you, Simon, and everybody else who's zoomed in today to be a part of it, and a huge thanks to all the people who are going to be coming in later on and watching it once the recordings go out. So we wish you all the best, Simon. It was a pleasure to listen to you today, and thank you for all your pearls of wisdom. It's just been absolutely amazing.
And a very simple one, if somebody wants to contact me, Google me, you can find me. Huh?
Yep, and otherwise they can send a message to us and we'll be more than happy to connect you over to Simon without any problems whatsoever. So that's always possible as well. So
I said once to a little girl, the father was trying to explain to me, explain to her my footy career, and I went away and she didn't know, and he came back and he said, oh, she knows who you are now. She Googled you. And I won her over when I said, I know, because when she Googled me, I went like that. Well, she thought that was fantastic. So I had her. It turned out the footy career. She liked the comedy. She thought that was good.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
All the best. I'll leave now. Good on you.
That's all right. We'd love everyone to hang around at 4 o'clock. We've got the amazing Dr. Anna Rubenstein, who's going to be talking to us about thriving, not just surviving during COVID. So have a little break and we'll see you in about 20 minutes. Thank you, and thanks for tuning in.